Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I have some shocking news for you all. I know you're gonna catch your breath and grab your chest and go, no way, that's not happening. America has lost its mind and really lost its soul. We are watching not just a collapse in a societal sense, in a civilization sense. I think we're watching a collapse of our humanity, of our soul. We're watching it just completely fall apart all around us. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of people that, yeah, it's okay, it's normal. This is just the way things go, and too many people are completely oblivious. And I'm not even talking about the normies out there. I'm not talking about the left. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about folks that should be awake, Bible believers, people that understand, they're conservatives. They should get it, but they've convinced themselves that everything's okay, that this is just a cycle. It's like a V-shaped recovery. We've heard all of these stupid terms over the last couple of years that kind of, put people in a sense of complacency. It's okay. While everything's falling apart around us, today, First Republic Bank has lost 50% of its value in one day. I watched a YouTuber last week, and he was making a prediction, and he's a financial kind of guru guy. And he said that the information that he was getting is that we're about to see another big banking collapse. A bunch more banks will fail in the next week or two. Well, First Republic Bank is it's worse than it was a month or so ago. And it was one of the ones that they were trying to shore up to keep it from collapsing. And now it completely is, because I guess something like $100 billion in deposits has been removed out of that bank. People are running away from it. We're seeing Russia talk about how America is actually the aggressor. America is the one that wants World War III. That's not what they want. America is wanting World War III. We've watched in the last 24, 48 hours the most popular, highest viewed, highest paid personality in the news media get canceled, losing his job over a reason that doesn't really make sense. Why? Because it's all shifting away from the truth. They know they've got an election coming up. They know they've got to suppress the truth as much as possible. And I think it's all part of their little plan. Just a little tidbit of information. Did you know that both Dominion, the company that made the voting machines that sued Fox News for $780 million? Well, Dominion and Fox News, they're two of almost their largest shareholders are the same company. Guess what? I'll give you 5 chances to guess, and the first 4 are wrong. It's BlackRock. BlackRock owns a massive share of both Dominion voting machines and Fox News. So it's almost like they sued themselves. They basically took money out of this pocket and transferred it over and put it into this pocket. But that's probably too conspiratorial or whatever for most people. We're watching America just fall apart, okay? We're watching the absolute heart and soul of Americans completely get washed away. And those of the Americans that are still hold true to what freedom really is, of what small government is, and most importantly, really holds true to that message of the Bible from the Most High, spoken all those long years ago by Yeshua himself, of how we're supposed to live our life. The very few people left that probably actually really hold true to that. We're a dying breed. We're a minority. We just absolutely are. We're watching, just look at the last 3 years. Excuse me. Last 3 years, we've watched it go from Black Lives Matter, when it actually didn't. It was just a corporation to make a lot of money and to push very communistic ideas. They didn't care about Black lives. Most of the people involved in Black Lives Matter were actually white anarchists and communists. And a lot of the things that they were doing was terrorizing, hurting, and even killing black folks. And then we saw it shift from that to where they started teaching critical race theory and all of this garbage in the schools, telling, people, black people that you're downtrodden because you're so underprivileged and nobody likes you and you've got to fight to get to the top. And you white people are doing it. You're bad people and you're all racist. You're born racist. You're a horrible person. And then we shifted from that narrative to where, well, you're actually a boy, and you little girl, you're actually a boy, and you little boy, you're actually a girl. And here, we'll give you some medicine, and we'll change that, and we'll cut body parts off and sew them on, cut part of your arm off, cut part of your leg off to make some ridiculous looking appendage. And it's all normal, it's good, it's healthy, it's good for us. I mean, that's the way we've always been. We've always had, 20 to 30% of our population that were actually some transgender, which there's no such thing as transgender, folks. That's a complete fallacy. We should stop. I should stop. We should all stop using that term. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And it's not really just a mental disorder. It's really satanic. Giving it a mental disorder, and I heard someone else, I believe it was Bryson Gray, said this, that it's if you call it just a mental disorder, you're giving them an excuse. Well, they're not in control of what they're doing. They're doing it because they have this disorder, and that's why they think this way. That's why they're doing this to their body. That's why they're trying to do this to children. That's not true. It's satanic. We're watching our entire nation in almost every segment completely fall apart. The latest numbers that I can find show amongst young people that anywhere between 17 and 20% claim to be transgender. That's almost a fifth. Are you going to tell me that 20% of human population has always been that way, and just only now they actually figured it out, after all these thousands of years? No, of course not. It's ridiculous. I've used this number before, that out of all the Americans that claim to have a Christian faith, only about 2 to 3% of them, which ends up being somewhere between 1% or less than 1% of the total American population, actually claim to have a biblical worldview, which means that they believe that God created the earth, that we are responsible for our sins, that there's punishment for our sins, and that only through Yeshua, Jesus Christ, is there salvation. All this biblical worldview, and that he's actively involved in our relationship, on our lives. Only about 3% of self-professed Christians actually hold that view. This should not come as a shock to us, because when we read in the Bible, we hear different passages talking about the remnant, and that the road is straight and narrow, and that it's hard to do. There's a limited amount of people. There's few people. Only few will hold this truth, which indicates there's not going to be a lot of us. And so we have to accept that we're just the minority now. You're not going to hear that. What? Some white guy is the minority? What's the most ridiculous? You're the most privileged person on the planet, Mr. Maddox, just because you're a white guy. We know that that's not true. Or Christian. Oh, you're a Christian. Oh, you believe in Jesus. Oh, you believe in God. Oh, you read the Bible. Oh, you're so privileged. Well, maybe we are now, only in the sense that we're able to have our faith and to profess our faith with somewhat freedoms. I could have this video removed. I've crossed the line probably a few times in this video, and they may choose to remove it and get me another big old slap. This time I'll be banned for 2 or 3 weeks. But I don't really have to worry about being murdered in my sleep, or having my children drug out of my home and beaten and raped, and my wife beaten and raped and murdered because of our faith. That does happen in some parts of the world. And maybe that's the problem here in America. We've had it too good. We've had it too good for too long. We've enjoyed the fact that we can go to church and we can own Bibles and have housefuls of Bibles and read them whether we want to or not. That we can be free, There's always a fine here and there for something they don't like us doing. But for the most part, we're still very free. We can say what we want, own guns. For the most part. I'm generally speaking, folks. For the most part, we're very free. And maybe that's the problem. We've had freedom too long, and now we don't appreciate it. Now we're not fighting for it. I said this many years ago, and I'm not bragging, but it looks like what I said is coming true. I said many years ago that Texas would be the first really big conservative area to fall. And I said the reason why is because, and for those of you that are Texans, or those of you that know Texans, you should probably just fess up and admit to this. If you ask any Texan, they'll tell you Texas is the biggest, the best, the greatest state, the freest state, the proudest state, most guns, most Christians. We're the best. We're the biggest, the best, the freest. And California and New York can do all they want to do, but they'll never touch Texas. And because of that attitude, I think Texans personally have been very lackadaisical. And they've not fought it back when liberalism started taking over their big city areas. When Austin became very, very liberal, when Houston and Dallas areas started becoming liberal, and even places like Fort Worth and other areas that have typically been very, very conservative are starting to open the doors for drag queen shows for children and all kinds of stuff. And I think because Texans always believed that nothing could shake them, they were too big to fall, that they never fought back for it. That's going to happen that's a microcosm of what's going to happen in the United States. It's going to be everywhere. Americans, Christians, Torah people, we've all sat around for too many generations and allowed this evilness, this satanic, this wickedness to grow in our country. We've allowed it to enter in our homes. We've allowed and tolerated music and TV and internet, things that we should never have allowed in our homes. We've allowed it into our lives. We've allowed ourselves to and convinced ourselves that voting for this guy, even though we know he's bad, he's a lot better than this guy. And so we're going to choose to vote for this evil over this evil because he's a little bit better than this one. And in the sense, and in the end, we've just voted for evil. And then we just wonder why we keep getting worse as a nation. We've accepted things that we should have never accepted. When the men of this nation, the fathers and the heads of the homes in our communities, when they should have been out there on the streets saying, we're not going to allow this abortion clinic in our community. We're not going to allow this cult, this occult in our community. We're not going to allow these types of books in our schools. We're not going to allow this to be taught. We're not going to allow you to take the 10 Commandments out. We're not going to allow you to water down and dumb down everything. We're not going to allow this evilness and this wickedness and this worldly and communistic behavior into our community. Well, they were busy, sitting in a boat fishing. They were playing their little golf. They were watching their football games. It was air conditioned. It was nice having their Bud Lights. Life was great because life has been great for a while. And because life was great, we didn't think we really needed to fight too much anymore for it. And here we are today. We're in a world that's falling apart around us. It's not the worst world, the worst civilization that's ever lived. Because, and we say that because, well, we still have air conditioning, we still drive cars, we can still go to the grocery store, I still have a job, I still can do this, I can still do that. But we've also murdered like over 60 million innocent children. And now, by very likely the thousands, and it seems to be increasing because the clinics are popping up all over the country at a pretty rapid pace, now we're not just murdering innocent babies, we're actually mutilating, physically mutilating and psychologically mutilating innocent children. And apparently that's okay too, as long as everybody goes to church on Sundays and everyone shows up to Easter for the Easter egg hunt and the sunrise services. Then we're a Christian nation, right? Just forget about all that other stuff. Forget that you can't turn TV on, you can't watch a commercial, you can't watch a movie, you can't listen to a song, you can't do any of that kind of stuff without seeing some kind of overt sexual theme in it. Can't. Your children, you can't let them go to public schools anymore because of the garbage that's being produced. You have to pretty much raise your children in like a bubble, practically, because everything is evil, everything is sinful, everything is worldly. And for the last few generations, everyone's sat around saying, well, we can tolerate that because we're still the biggest and the best and the freest and the most godly. And as long as the rest of us are good people, we'll tolerate and have this tolerant love for all these people that are wanting to bring in all of this communism and this Satanism and all of this evilness. We'll tolerate them because the rest of us are good people. Except that's not how it works. The people that are good and the people that are bad, the bad ones start rubbing off on the good. And little by little, they take over. They started in the schools. They started with the children. They started winning the children over. And if they do that, eventually there won't be any good people left. There won't be any godly people left, because generation by generation, they're winning over more and more, to where now we're seeing numbers for really the first time in American history of people that go to church and the people that are Christians. The numbers are actually shrinking. And it's probably going to continue to happen. Yes, we talk about, excuse me, all these other things that are vastly important. You know, the economy, war, everything. It's insane. It's absolutely crazy, the world that we live in. And again, what's almost crazier is that so many people, the ones that actually see it, the ones that actually listen, still think that it's not a big deal. It's okay. It'll get better. It's all right. I mean, it's going to turn around eventually. You know, we're going to get someone elected and it'll just be like a light switch. It'll just flip itself off. That's not how evilness works. I don't know what Bible you're reading out of, but that's not how sin works. Sin, once it gets in, it spreads. It's like a yeast. You take just a little bit of yeast and you put it in flour and it'll just grow and grow and grow. It starts eating the sugars and stuff. You know, take a little bit of yeast and pour it in a bowl of warm sugar water, and it just keeps growing and growing. You don't need buckets of yeast. You just need a little bit, because it multiplies and it grows. It's like a virus. You don't need like one little tiny microscopic thing that may or may not exist. I've never seen a virus. I can't guarantee that it exists. But anyways, you don't need, you know, boatloads of it, a whole bucket full of the viral to get sick. You only need a little bit, because it attaches and it grows and it grows and grows. We have our immune system that tries to fight it off, but if you have a weak immune system, it can't fight it off and it grows fast. And that's where we are in America. We have a weak immune system. 100 years ago, we had a strong immune system. And when darkness and evilness and sin started to rear its ugly head, there were enough good people that slapped it down. Said, you're not doing that in this country. You're not bringing that into this community. The men of the community would meet you at the gates and said, you're not bringing this garbage into our community. But now we have a weak immune system. And here we are with the world falling apart. Our country's falling apart. And everyone's still fishing on the boats, watching their football, playing their golf, you know, getting their hair did. Because life is still kind of good. Might as well live it up, you know. Rome's burning, but by golly, let's get out there and party while we still can. And I think that's the mentality. And it's a shame. What that means is that folks like you and I need to be ever the more vigilant, be more determined to protect and to preserve what we have, this remnant that we are. We're becoming a smaller and smaller minority, and if it means our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor, we have to defend that. We have to protect our beliefs and protect our families, because it's coming after all of us. It may not be to your doorstep yet, but you give it some time and it'll show up. Get your houses in order, folks. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.